Hey guys, it's Scarlett here. I'm here with Lily Bell and welcome to another video with me. So today I wanted to do a review of two new decks that I got recently. So those two decks are the Supra Oracle and the Starman Tarot. So these are both two really different and interesting decks. So I thought it'd be fun to give you some of my initial impressions about the deck's design, about working with the deck. So that's what we'll be talking about today. And if you are new here, welcome to my channel. I post weekly videos about tarot, paganism, and magic. And if you do like those ideas, do please subscribe down below and like this video. So let's start with the Supra Oracle deck, and this is a deck created by a design company called UUSI, that's U-U-S-I, and they're actually located here in Chicago, which is nice. And one of the first things you need to remember is an oracle deck is going to be very different than a traditional tarot deck. So for example, a tarot deck, you know, it has the traditional 78 cards divided between a major and a minor arcana. So once you basically learn a tarot system, you learn the card meanings, you can basically read with any other tarot deck. Oracle decks are entirely different. So they are in their kind of their own little world in a way. So you need to learn an entirely different set of card meanings. You need to learn an entirely different theme or ideas based on each oracle deck. So it's kind of like whenever you get a new oracle deck, you're starting from square zero. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced reader or a novice. Oracle decks always mean you kind of are starting with something new, which can be exciting and can be intimidating. I do have a full written review of this deck, so I'll link it down in the description box down below. And then if you are curious on more about the differences between tarot and oracle decks, I did discuss that in more depth on my intro to tarot video, so I will link that one as well. So this deck, now I will kind of go into what I like and dislike about this deck, and for the most part this is a stunningly beautiful deck. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. This deck in particular, it's inspired by medieval Gnosticism as well as Jungian psychology, so if you are interested in those kind of occult topics, you might be interested in this deck in particular. And it's divided into different sections. So there's a materia prima, the hidden path, and sacred geometry. So it's kind of divided into these three sections as opposed to like a traditional major and minor arcana that you would see in a tarot deck. So starting with what I like about this deck, and there are a lot of things that I do like about this deck. I do have their companion book. And this is a very well-written book, and it's important with oracle decks that the books are comprehensive, because with tarot, I mean, I know the meanings of the cards, I know the symbolism, I don't need a book to read tarot, but with an oracle deck, that means it's a brand new system, that means I'm going to need to become very familiar with the book. And this book, it was very well done, so I definitely appreciate that. The general aesthetic of this deck, it is in kind of mostly black and white, very graphic, minimalist. So for example, you have some cards that are simply like sacred geometry. Then you have some cards with just a single word on them. The designs themselves appear to be kind of like pen and ink, and have a variety of different motifs and symbols. I think that this deck in general was really well thought out. Even a card like this, it's titled Ego, and it has wings kind of falling apart, and I'm definitely guessing they're basing this on the myth of Icarus, who made his wings out of wax and then had too much of an ego, he flew too close to the sun and fell and died. So it's a really subtle reference, but it's a really well thought out one. So I do definitely appreciate that. So there are some really kind of neat cards in this deck too. Like there's a card that just says nothing, it's blank, a little spooky there. There's some cards that have part of a labyrinth on them, like this one titled Intuition. So it's a really unique deck, very beautifully drawn, very beautifully constructed. I do like how there are these 4 labyrinth cards in this deck, and you can put them together to make a map. So it kind of reminds me of how the Prisma Visions deck, if you have that one, you can lay out all the cards and it makes kind of a cohesive image. So it's kind of like that, but on a much kind of smaller scale with just those 4 cards. So I really appreciate that. You also get with this deck, it comes in a really beautiful box with kind of a gold detailing. And like all Usi decks, the deck comes with a cloth bag. So that kind of is a feature of decks by Usi. For example, I have a few of their other decks. So I have the Pagan Otherworlds deck. This is their book, this is the deck, and it comes in a bag with, you know, a similar style box with a nice kind of seal on the top too. And then the same kind of thing with another deck that I have of theirs, which is the kind of very tongue-in-cheek Eros deck. This is kind of an inappropriate tarot deck, but it's really beautiful. It comes with a coloring book, and again you get a bag, and then the deck inside has a really nice box with a particular kind of seal on the front. So they pretty much keep all of their decks within that kind of design realm. So there's cohesion among a variety of different decks that they produce. So I do really appreciate that. Overall, if I had to say what my dislikes are, really the only dislike I have about this deck is the fact that it's an Oracle deck, and that is something I don't normally use Oracle decks, and it's just I prefer tarot, and it's what I'm accustomed to. So I am going out of the box, and I have been using this deck and working with it, and I do definitely like it, but it's going to be a bit different, and I'm still going to have to work out how I'm going to fit this particular deck into my kind of daily readings and my general routine. So that's pretty much the only dislike, but overall I would definitely recommend this deck. Okay, so the next deck I wanted to show you is the Starman Tarot. And this deck is about David Bowie, like David Bowie, the singer. So David Bowie passed away just a few years ago, I believe in January 2016, and he was one of my favorite musicians. So when I heard that this deck was being created, I was really excited to see what it was about. And this deck basically comes out of a collaboration that David Bowie had with David DeAngelis, and I might be mispronouncing that name, but David began collaborating with David Bowie in around 1995, and they had a working relationship that spanned many years and quite a different number of projects, including the artwork for the album Earthling, as well as concepts for stage sets and art shows. So David was really inspired by their years of collaborating together. So after David Bowie passed away, he created the images for this particular deck. And this deck, it kind of weaves together a lot of sacred geometry designs, alchemical symbols, and then also a lot of stuff from various traditions among the world's religions and spiritual systems. So there's a whole lot kind of going on there, and that's integrated into these designs. So in starting with what I really like about this deck, I love this box. I know it's silly, but I love how it incorporates that classic kind of David Bowie lightning bolt design. So that's really fun. I mean, it's just a really well-constructed box. So when you open it, you get a book here that is a very sizable book. So the book also has color images of each card along with their description. So it really does tell you a lot about each of the images, and it's just aesthetically very, very beautiful with all those color images in there. So the deck itself, I do really like the card design on the back of this deck. It's just kind of black with this very kind of geometric pink pattern on the back. So I do kind of love the general presentation of this deck, the book, the creative box with that kind of lightning bolt. And you know, overall I was pretty excited to get this deck. Now, some of the dislikes on this deck, and I do have several dislikes. On the one hand, the cardstock is pretty cheap, so it probably isn't going to last that long. In terms of the designs, it's not my favorite aesthetic, if I'm honest. There is a lot going on in these images. So you have a wide variety of different symbols, different motifs, different layers of imagery going on, which can be cool, but often in a lot of these images, it comes across as very chaotic. Really, you don't know where to focus your gaze. Intuitively, I feel like I kind of get drawn in a whole lot of directions. So I would say, you know, it's not the easiest deck to read with, in my opinion, though that's me personally. You might have a different experience working with this deck. I also feel like because there is so much going on visually, I'm not sure that the creator had a really good handle on the meanings of the individual cards, because I feel like a lot of the symbols and a lot of that alchemical and geometric imagery doesn't really fit very well with the wider narrative or the wider meanings of the cards. So I feel like it kind of doesn't necessarily fit in very well with those traditional card readings. It is kind of in a kind of a graphic design format with these different layers. There's another deck that I have that's kind of similar that uses a lot of kind of graphic design and layers of different imagery. This is the Night Sun Tarot, so it's kind of similar to this one. And in general, I don't like decks that are very computer generated. So it's just not my personal aesthetic preference when it comes to tarot artwork, but if it, you know, appeals to you, then by all means go for it. So I would recommend with this particular deck that if you are going to use it, to use smaller spreads, like maybe a 3-card spread, for example, because doing a whole 10-card Celtic Cross spread with a deck like this would be like ultimate visual overload. Just too much going on at once. So it is a really interesting deck, and it is just so colorful, which can be really fun. But it's not my personal favorite, just in the sense I don't connect with it as much as some of my other decks. But I would love to hear what you think. If you have the Starman Tarot or if you have the Supra Oracle, I'd love to hear more about your opinions on these decks. Or if you have a particular favorite tarot deck, definitely message down below what your favorite deck is, because I love to get your opinions on that as well. So thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you all next week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.